Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, this is going to be a long video because I literally have 5 full pages of notes. There's just so much to talk about, just so much. Today, I am doing another true crime video and I am going to be talking about the Alyssa Turney case. If you have never heard of this case, get ready because it is going to suck you in and make you just so frustrated that this case is still technically unsolved. Even though I feel 100% sure that there's only one person that could have done anything. Fully prepared with a big old bottle of water. I highly recommend getting yourself a drink and a snack and settling in for probably the wildest story you will ever hear. And if I'm looking over here, it's because I literally have 5 pages of notes, so I'm trying to stay on track. I want to share this story with people who have either never heard of it, or if you have heard of it, maybe share some details you don't know. I do have to say, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. I just have to say that because I don't want to get into any trouble. Alyssa Marie was born on April 3rd, 1984. Her mother, Barbara, was married at the time to Alyssa's father, Steve. Barbara and Steve were not doing very well, and around this time, Barbara met Michael Turney. Shortly thereafter, Barbara divorced her husband, Steve, and very quickly married Michael. And Alyssa was only 3 years old when her mother married Michael. He had 3 children and Barbara had 2. She had a son and Alyssa. So they kind of became a blended family and they considered themselves the Brady Bunch. And in 1988, Barbara and Michael had Sarah. Everything seemed to be perfect. Things are not always what they seem. They had a lot of financial issues. Michael actually met Barbara because she was a loan officer at a bank and he was trying to take out a second mortgage on his house. Michael and Barbara actually got a divorce and got remarried so that Michael could file for bankruptcy. And there was also a lot of chaos in the home as well. Sarah even slipped out of the house when she was young and got hit by a car, and Alyssa had to be rushed to the hospital to get her stomach pumped. They were taken away by Child Protective Services for a little while. All of these problems, the financial issues, the stress, and the chaos in the home led Michael to actually check himself into a mental hospital. Hello there. Oh, okay. Back to the case. Michael checked himself into a mental hospital and this actually really frustrated Barbara. She was a stay-at-home mom at this time and she was left alone with 6 kids to take care of. When he came back, she was already frustrated with him and he did treat Alyssa differently. And it started to become more and more apparent to Barbara at this time. There are a ton of home videos that Sarah has shared that show Alyssa trying to get Michael's attention and he just wasn't interested. Sadly, Barbara was diagnosed with lung and bone cancer and she died, leaving a 9-year-old Alyssa to be raised by Michael. Alyssa was considered a wild child, quote unquote, by Michael. She was on a special education program at her school. It's very odd because according to Sarah, there is so much evidence saying that she had no learning disability and her being on a special education program was definitely not needed. But Alyssa truly didn't let that get her down. She was such a carefree, spontaneous, loving individual and loved to do normal teenage things. I mean, she rebelled a normal amount. But Michael was obsessed with her, really exaggerated her wild side, and he really made it seem like she was out of control. Alyssa attended Paradise Valley High School in Phoenix, Arizona, and at the time of her disappearance, she was 17 years old. She was doing great in school. She was holding down a part-time job. She was hanging out with her friends, just having a normal life. But everything changed on May 17th, 2001. It was Alyssa's last day of junior year, and Michael ended up picking her up from school early. They went out to lunch, and at this lunch, it is claimed that Michael and Alyssa started arguing. Alyssa wanted more freedom. She was 17 years old. It was summertime. She was just wanting to not have to check in with him every single minute of every single day. Michael says that when he dropped off Alyssa at home, she stormed off to her room and slammed the door, and then Michael said he left to go pick up Sarah from school. Sarah was finishing up her 7th grade year, and her and her classmates went on a field trip the last day of school to a water park. She got back to the school around the normal time that school would end, and her father was not there. She went over to a friend's house. She remembers that her and her friend were smoking cigarettes. And this was like one of the big rules that Michael had. There was to be no smoking because her mother had died of lung cancer. Sarah remembers literally just spraying herself all over with perfume to try to hide the fact that she had been smoking. And obviously, I mean, that would be a dead giveaway that you were smoking. Michael didn't say anything to her when she got in the car. And this didn't make Sarah feel suspicious at first, but Michael was almost frantic. He was concerned that Alyssa wasn't answering her cell phone. So he told Sarah to call Alyssa, and he gave her his phone to do so. Sarah was the first one to enter Alyssa's room. She got in there, she saw her backpack just dumped out all over the floor, and found Alyssa's cell phone on the dresser, along with a note. And the note said, "Dad and Sarah, when you dropped me off at school today, I decided that I really am going to California. Sarah, you said you didn't want me around. Look, you got it. I'm gone. That's why I saved my money. Dad, I took $300 from you." Experts have confirmed that this is Alyssa's handwriting, but they don't know when it was written. Sarah actually has thought a lot about this note and has kind of gone into detail about why she feels it may have been forced. Alyssa's handwriting was very neat, but the last line where it says, "Dad, I took $300 from you," it's kind of off center and skewed. She would always sign her name with a large lowercase a, but the note had a normal capital A when she signed her name. And Alyssa did save quite a bit of money. She saved about $1,800. And this was all in her bank, but none of it was touched. Michael made it seem like it was a huge deal. He even wanted Sarah to make flyers, and he started making phone calls to friends and family. But when he called the police, he reported Sarah as a runaway. So no investigation really got started. Sarah didn't think it was too serious at the time. I mean, Alyssa had stayed over at friends' houses for lengths of time just to kind of cool off and get away from their dad. Sarah just thought Alyssa needed some time to cool off and she would be home eventually. We're gonna talk about Michael now. Michael is the only suspect in Alyssa's disappearance. So, I need a drink. Like I said, Michael was obsessed with Alyssa. He would regularly go through her things. He would monitor her phone calls. He would even go to her job and make sure she was there and just sit there and watch her. He also would put up these huge poster boards with rules for Alyssa. He would say that she wouldn't remember them. Sarah has said that this kind of obsessive and extremely strict, controlling nature from Michael really started when Alyssa became a teenager. Sarah was raised so differently. She was 12 around the time that Alyssa went missing, and Michael had her move into the master bedroom. She had her own bathroom, her own entrance and exit to the house. Michael also gave her full access to the security system that was in the house. And at 17, Sarah's boyfriend moved in, and Michael bought her a mini fridge and filled it with beer, and it was like her house was the party house. All of her friends would come over and hang out and everybody thought that her dad was the coolest. In the 70s, Michael was a deputy sheriff. His brother actually shot his wife for allegedly cheating on him with Michael. And Michael helped cover up the crime. With his experience as a police officer, he would know how to corrupt evidence and how to make someone look like a runaway. Michael also was known to have very inappropriate relationships with his psychiatrists. He was on disability and was required to see a psychiatrist weekly. Alyssa was even diagnosed with ADD by Michael's psychiatrist, who he had been seeing for 15 years and was more of a family friend than a doctor. This psychiatrist actually lost his practice and moved all of his stuff into the Turney's garage. There was also another psychiatrist that Michael had. She was prescribing him pills and he would give them to her. Well, we are going to get into some pretty sensitive topics. Just wanted to put a trigger warning here. There was a video that Sarah found from 1997.
The red button.
What?
Hit the red button now.
I don't want to. I don't record.
Hit the red button.
Yeah. I'm recording. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, pervert.
Give me the camera now. And you're still recording. And Alyssa is stupid moron. Alyssa's a stupid moron.
Shortly after her mother passed away, her father was dating her 3rd grade teacher, Diane Boardman. Alyssa went to her and said, quote, "I'm having sex with my father." There's a phone call recorded between Diane and Michael where Michael is just complaining about Alyssa, and he repeatedly refers to Alyssa as it. That she would probably just end up just like her aunt, someone a person would have great sex with and would bring children into the world who would grow up to be criminals, and that we should probably have her spayed. Alyssa would have been 9 during this conversation. What the actual hell? I'm sorry if I'm like smiling like I'm literally about to like punch somebody in the throat. Alyssa was dating a guy named John around the time of her disappearance, and John claims that Alyssa did tell him about Michael sexually assaulting her. Several of Alyssa's friends say the same thing. And then David, Michael's nephew, was staying at the Turney house for about 6 months between 1997 and 1998. He got home really late one night and he was just chilling on the couch and he was like, you know what? I want to watch one of these VHS tapes. And he picked up one that on it said Dr. Dolittle. But he was absolutely shocked and horrified when he put the tape in. What popped up on the screen was 2 women laying on the couch wearing only shorts with a newspaper or a magazine over their faces. David believes one of these women was Alyssa. And the tape shows Michael just sitting in the corner. David was literally so disturbed by this tape that he packed up all his stuff and left. This tape was never recovered, and Michael obviously denies that the tape ever existed and claims that David was a drunk and Michael actually kicked him out. Alyssa's mother, before she died, actually took Alyssa to be checked for any sexual abuse. So this would have been when she was probably 6 or 7, and there was scar tissue found. She was trying to save up money. She wanted to leave him. Her family is adamant that she was over this relationship and she wanted to take her children away from him. But sadly, she was diagnosed with cancer before she could leave. An interesting thing I would like to include here is some information about Barbara's death. Michael claimed that he got fired 3 weeks before Barbara died. This is a lie, one of many. Michael quit. And according to documentation, if Barbara did not die by the end of that month, by the end of day, February 28th, 1993, Michael would not have any life insurance. Barbara died less than 24 hours before the deadline. Sarah's aunts and grandmother believe that Michael was overdosing her on morphine. I'm sorry, but there's too many coincidences in this case to think that he didn't do anything to her, you know? Michael even lied about serving in Vietnam, and the only reason that that lie was cleared up was because he was under oath. And believe me, we're getting to that. Like I said, there's so much information. Now that we know a little bit more about Michael and some of what he's said, what he's done, let's dive in to what happened after Alyssa went missing. Michael claims that there was a phone call that came in at 5 a.m. Michael claims it was Alyssa and that she was swearing at him and telling him to just leave her alone. Michael claims that he called the police and asked them to trace the call, and they said no. He also claims that he couldn't do the star 69 or whatever it is to trace the call because he didn't think it would work long distance. But then he also says that he went out to different payphones in Phoenix to look for Alyssa. So was she calling long distance? Or was she still in the area? Like, you contradict yourself constantly, dude. It took the police years to finally start investigating Alyssa's case. It was actually because of a convicted killer named Thomas Albert Heimer, nicknamed Psycho, confessed to killing Alyssa. He also confessed to killing JC Lee Dugard, who is alive, but he was able to pick Alyssa out of a lineup. So the investigators spoke to him. They even gave him a lie detector test, which he bombed. Him changing his story all the time. They basically said that he was unreliable and they couldn't pursue him as a suspect. Michael had a security system in the house. He had surveillance cameras in the vents. Michael even showed Sarah a picture of Alyssa and her boyfriend making out on the couch. So where's the surveillance footage from the day that Alyssa went missing? Well, again, Michael is claiming like 30,000 different things. He claimed that they weren't working that day. He claimed that he offered the footage to the police and they denied it. And then when the police finally were like, hey, can we have that footage? He said that he already reviewed it, there's nothing on it, and he disposed of it. There was also a phone recording system in the home. And where's the tapes from the morning that Alyssa called? Oh, it wasn't turned on. Also, about a year after Alyssa's disappearance, Michael sold the family car. It is also reported that he had 2 of the same vehicle, but the family only ever saw one of them. Michael was the only one in the family who wasn't open to doing police interviews. He always had an excuse. He never submitted DNA. It wasn't until 2020 covered this case in 2009 that Sarah found out that Michael had taken Alyssa out of school early the day of her disappearance. Michael claims he picked up Alyssa early because she was nervous because she wanted to break up with her boyfriend, but her boyfriend claims that before Alyssa left, she popped her head into his class and said, my dad's picking me up early, I'll see you later, because they were actually planning to go to a party that night. Several of Alyssa's friends were also going to go to this party. Now here's where things get crazier. I know, how? So out of the blue, Michael decides to change his entire story. He decided to claim that the local union was responsible for Alyssa's abduction and murder. Michael was an electrician in the 80s after he left the police force, and he claims that the union hall had a grudge against him for filing a complaint. Michael's sons do confirm that there were phone calls made to the house that these workers would call and threaten and harass Michael and his family. The police at this time were starting to consider Michael a suspect in Alyssa's disappearance, and they wanted to do a full search of the Turney home. So they got a search warrant and they headed to the house. And when they got there, they caught Michael headed to the mailbox. And they found 2 pistols on him, 7 magazines of ammo, and a knife. They arrested him. They continued with their search warrant. And what they found when they entered the house was 19 guns and 26 pipe bombs. The largest explosive seizure in Arizona history. They also found a safe, and in this safe were a lot of documents, one of which was a formal contract that Alyssa had to sign stating that Michael had never sexually abused her. There was also a 98-page manifesto titled Diary of a Madman Martyr. And he had a full-out plan for how he was going to get revenge for what the Union Hall had done to Alyssa. In the manifesto, it does say that he intended to kill himself after the attack. But also located in the safe was a disguise and a fake social security number. So was he planning on doing this attack and then running away and starting a new life? Probably. The search warrant was executed on December 11th, 2008. The next Union Hall meeting was December 15th. They literally caught him days before this attack would have happened. Sarah does remember the day that her father was arrested. The investigating officers for Alyssa's case, Stuart Summershoe and William Anderson, called her and said, "We have news about Alyssa's case, can you come in?" And when she got there, they told her that her father was in custody. They had proof that he was sexually abusing Alyssa. He had something to do with her disappearance, and that he also has a daughter, a secret daughter. And Sarah was just rocked by this. And when he was convicted, Sarah fought for him. She started websites and campaigns. She even went on 2020 saying that she believed her father is innocent of anything to do with Alyssa. Eventually though, Sarah did start to think through things and talk to people and look at the evidence, and she started to realize that things did not add up. She realized that her father was involved in her disappearance and most likely her murder. Sarah believes that Michael tried to sexually assault Alyssa, and Alyssa fought back, and Michael did not like that. Alyssa possibly threatened to tell someone. Sarah believes that Michael snapped and killed Alyssa and buried her in the desert. He came home, washed up, set the scene, and went to pick up Sarah. When Michael was released from prison, Sarah wanted to confront him. So they met up at a Starbucks, and Sarah is so smart. Like, I admire Sarah so much. She knows Arizona is a one-party consent state, so she met up with her father and she recorded that conversation. And let me just say, Michael said some shady shit, okay? Shady. He literally asked Sarah, "Do you think your sister would have put up with me molesting her? If she thought for 1 minute that I had done something to you, she would have definitely gotten in my face. She would have slit my throat." Who would even say that to their daughter? And Michael tried his absolute best to blame Sarah and her siblings for making Alyssa the way that she was. Also, blaming them for his own mental state. I can personally say that I have experience with a narcissist who is a master manipulator, so I really feel for Sarah, and I really truly relate. But Sarah did not fall for any of it. And eventually, Michael started to get aggressive. He eventually just said, "What are you getting at? What do you want me to say?" Sarah obviously just wanted the truth. What he said next is one of the reasons I truly believe he is guilty. He said,
"Then what you really need to do then is to make a date. Because hopefully, and I hope this is the truth, that I don't have to live through any of my children dying or anybody else disappearing. Okay? I mean, that's enough in one lifetime. Okay? Or have a wife 11 years younger than me die. Be there at the deathbed, Sarah, and I'll give you all the honest answers you want to hear."
excuse me? Is that not just what? During a campaign around Christmas, one of the days was focused on calling the Maricopa County DA's office. Sarah wanted to be one of the last calls, so she called in around like 4 or 5 o'clock. Sarah said, "I'm the sister," and so the detective was like, "We have been getting calls all day regarding this case. I had never heard of it before, but I am shocked that we have not taken more action or that this has not gone to trial." And then he tells her they had submitted a request to the police to present this case for prosecution, and they never responded. Summershoe and Anderson were taken off the case days before Michael was released from prison. They had been working with Sarah for years, planning this whole operation to arrest Michael and prosecute him for ALISSA'S disappearance. And days before he's released and they were gonna go arrest him, they get reassigned. Sergeant Bryant Morris is the detective on the case now. Sarah called in, just to talk about the case and get any updates. And when she spoke to him, it was so evident that he had no idea what was going on. Sarah was just asking, for more information about the sexual abuse charges. Morris literally said there are no allegations of sexual abuse in this case, but his department released a statement to 2020 and 2009 saying that there were allegations. Like, Sarah wanted to go a step further. She spoke to the commander of the Family Investigations Unit, and it was very obvious that there is something going on in the Phoenix Police Department. The commander said that Summershoe has always been on the case, that there was no reassignment. And when Sarah expressed her disappointment regarding the slow progress of starting up the Silent Witness campaign, this commander looked at her and said, "Who promised you a silent witness campaign?" And then proceeded to say that she couldn't speak to Sarah on what she has been previously told. There is so much more. And Sarah's podcast, Voices for Justice, is incredible. She is so well spoken and really working tirelessly to figure out what happened. I really encourage you guys to go give it a listen. Sarah has talked about how she doesn't have any family support, that she is not invited to family events because she doesn't want to be around her father. And as we enter this holiday season, Thanksgiving is literally this week, I can't help but think about how tough this time of year must be. I just encourage anybody who is watching this video, even if it's no longer the holiday season when you come across this video, I really encourage you to go over to Sarah's Instagram, Justice for Alissa, and just leave a comment on her most recent post, just letting her know that she is loved and appreciated and to keep fighting. And if Sarah ever watches this, I just wanted to say you are a total badass, and I really admire your strength. I hope that by making this video that it reaches people who have never heard this case before, and it will help you in some way. Again, please go follow the Justice for Alissa Instagram and the Voices for Justice Instagram, and listen to the podcast and share this video with your friends and your family. do it. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you are interested in following me on social media, I will have all of that linked down below, and I will see you guys in my next video.